I do want to ask a little bit about your personal story because voters nationwide are just getting to know you. You grew up in Oklahoma.
I did.
And you've talked about how your family stood at the brink. One person from Oklahoma.
There we go.
Welcome to Mississippi.
Okay.
So you talked about how your family stood at the brink of financial disaster through a good part of your childhood. How has that shaped your life in the Senate?
So I'll tell you about that. So I have 3 older brothers. They all went off and joined the military. That was their ticket to America's middle class. I was the late in life baby. My mother always just called me the surprise. And about the time I was in middle school, my daddy had a heart attack. And it was serious. Thought he was going to die. The church neighbors brought covered dishes. It was a scary time. He survived, but he couldn't go back to work. And we lost our family station wagon. And at night, I'd hear my parents talk. And that's where I learned words like mortgage and foreclosure. And I remember the day that I walked into my parents' bedroom, and laying out on the bed is the dress. And some people here will know the dress. It's the one that only comes out for weddings, funerals, and graduations. And my mother's in her slip, and she's stocking feet, and she's pacing back and forth, and she's crying. She's saying, "We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house." She was 50 years old. She'd never worked outside the home. She was truly terrified. And I watched her while she finally just pulled it together, put that dress on, put on her high heels, blew her nose, and walked to the Sears and got a minimum wage job. And that minimum wage job saved our house, but more importantly, it saved our family. Anybody who wants to know me has just heard the story. But here's the thing for me now. For a long time, I used to think that was just a story about my mother. How when you get scared, you reach down, you find what you have to find, and you bring it up. And then years later, I came to understand this is a story about millions of Americans who, it doesn't matter if you're scared. When you got to do something to take care of people you love, you reach down, you find it, and you pull it up. And then it was years later that I came to understand it was also a story about government. Because when this happened to my family, the minimum wage in America would support a family of 3. It would take care of a mortgage, utilities, and put food on the table. Today in America, a full-time minimum wage job will not keep a mama and a baby out of poverty. I am in this fight because I believe that is wrong. You know, it's for me, there's the whole story of why I'm in this fight. Washington once asked the question, at least on minimum wage, what does it take to support a family, to get a little toe in the door? Today, I hear them in Washington. They ask, what will improve the profitability of giant multinational banks? Well, I want a government that doesn't work for giant multinational corporations. I want one that works for little families like mine.
I want to bring in Latoya Hubbard. She works for a defense contracting firm here in Mississippi. Latoya?
Good evening.
Hi, Latoya.
Do you have any plans of relieving federally funded, overwhelming student loan debt burdens, being that many middle class and poor individuals obtain those loans to create a better future but are having issues doing that?
Oh, Latoya, the answer is yes. I have got plans to reduce student loan debt. Let me just start here. But you know, there are parts of this that are so personal. I've had one dream since I was in 2nd grade. There's just one thing I wanted to be. All 3 of my brothers went off and joined the military, And God bless him. You know what I want to be? I want to be a public school teacher from the time I was in 2nd grade. Can we hear it for America's public school teachers? Yeah. But you got to have a 4-year diploma to do that. And by the time I graduated high school, my family didn't have the money for a college application, much less to send me off to school. And I have a long and twisty story. I got a scholarship, then I fell in love, got married the first time. And I thought I'd lost it all. I thought I'd given up on that dream. And I found a commuter college, public college, that cost $50 a semester. And that was my ticket. And I became a special needs teacher. I got to live my dream. So let me just say, I believe in what we can do through education. But if America wants to be a stronger country, America wants to be a country of real opportunity for everyone, then that means that every kid has a right to get an education without getting crushed by student loan debt, period.
While we're on the subject of education, our next question has to do with the place we're standing in right now, Historically Black University.
Yes.
I want to bring in Kathy Johnson. She works in banking in Ridgeland, Mississippi. Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Being a graduate of a historically Black college and university, I see firsthand how we are the first to lose funding or to have budget cuts. How would you make it a priority that we receive more funding and being able to compete with non-historically Black colleges and universities?
All right, it's a great question. I believe in HBCUs. I just want to say I am the proud recipient of a diploma that was granted to me at Morgan State University. So, as part of their commencement address. So, let me put it this way. What we've got to do is we've got to be willing to invest more in our colleges and universities across the board. We have got to bring down the cost of an education. And for the schools that are serving the students who often come from first time to come to college, from families that struggle more, then that means we got to double down and double down a second time to make sure they have the resources they need. And it's not enough just for somebody to stand here and talk about it generally. I want you to know, I get this one. Right now in America, African American students are more likely to have to borrow money to go to college. They're more likely to borrow more money, and they are more likely to have trouble paying off that debt when they leave college. That is a national disgrace. And part of dealing with our student loan debt burden needs to focus on that specifically. So thank you. It's a good question. Thank you.
I want to bring in Brennan Breland. He's a lawyer and officer in the Army Reserves. Brennan.
Good evening, Senator. How do you respond to people who think that regardless of the underlying facts, the way you handled the question of your Native American heritage was tone-deaf, offensive, and indicative of a lack of presidential tact?
Well, you know, I grew up in Oklahoma. I learned about my family from my family. And based on that, that's just kind of who I am. And I do the best I can with it. You know, there was an investigation. Nothing I ever did or my family played any role in any job I ever got. But I'll tell you this. I have now done 38 town halls in Massachusetts last year, and this is my 32nd town hall since January. And what I've discovered is that people care a lot about what's happening to their lives every single day. and what touches them, like housing and education and health care. That's the kind of reason that I'm in this fight, and I'm gonna stay in this fight. And I'll tell you this, I'm gonna fight it from the heart every inch of the way. I'll do my best.